There is a meme about how every character you play in Skyrim ends up the same. You might be wondering, why do I always end up playing as a sneak archer? What if I told you that it's because the game design is telling you to play one? There's no flashing lights telling you to pick up the bow and Helgen and proceed to sneak shoot your way across Skyrim, but there are reinforcing systems and designs, from how you level up to the economy, where Skyrim either does a really good job of implicitly saying to you, you should play a sneak archer, or does a really terrible job of advertising another playstyle for your Dragonborn. Elder Scrolls games are probably the most popular role-playing game that uses a system of you get better at doing the thing by doing the thing repeatedly as a way to level up. You don't get experience points in the classical sense, where many games dole out little XP, little yellow numbers that let you spend them on skill trees or leveling up to get cool new feats or abilities. Skyrim instead gives you skill points as a result of increasing skills repeatedly, and you increase skills by doing the skill. In Skyrim, you increase your archery by shooting a bow. In a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you increase your archery by putting skill points into archery that you get from leveling up, which is done by completing quests and killing bad guys, but not necessarily shooting a bow. Also, in Skyrim, if you're increasing skills of a higher level, these will reward you more than increasing skills of a lower level. There's all a bunch of arithmetic and behind-the-scenes calculations for how much a skill level up contributes to your overall level up. This is all the puzzle of progression, a system for you to solve by finding a playstyle that the game wants to reward. Skyrim wants you, by rewarding you, to focus on certain skills and skill trees in creating your own custom class rather than spreading out activities and skill perks across many skill trees. How a game rewards you through its progression system is always a puzzle in the pursuit of the optimal. It's noteworthy how Skyrim doesn't give you experience points for completing quests, for example. It's a stark contrast to other massive RPGs in the space. Quests not being tied to leveling up reinforces what Skyrim is actually all about. It's about exploration, carving your own path, just going out and doing stuff. Whereas other RPGs want you to go through giant checklists that reward you for doing specific things, or want you to focus on going through a narrative over time. Take, for example, original Dungeons & Dragons as an example of how experience points modifies players' behavior. You got 1 XP for every 1 gold you looted. So what did players become obsessed with? Loot. Skyrim instead says, hey, you'll get better at the thing by doing the thing a lot. You're not gonna get these cool perks or more hit points if you dabble in everything. Or at least it's gonna take a very long time. And this pushes us back to the sneak archer, and why in the puzzle of progression and the game incentivizing player behavior, it screams as the path the player should pick. Knowing how you level up, sneak archery has 2 key traits. The sneak skill and the archery skill are both available to you at the very beginning of the game, and you can increase them simultaneously. If you shoot an enemy from stealth with a bow, you're leveling up both your archery and stealth skills. Not many other playstyles reward a 2-for-1 scenario. If you're a veteran of Skyrim, you might be ready to totally tear me down at this point and go, John, no, that's not the only combo where you can increase 2 skills at once, and indeed, correctamundo, but this is where we leave the progression of game design and turn to, again, how the sneak archer is reinforced through other systems of the game. The sneak archer undeniably lets you approach the world and combat with a level of safety, but also a greater sense of exploration, a greater desire to investigate and explore. You're always looking for the best place to shoot from, at a distance or with obstacles between you and the enemy. You're always far away, whittling enemies down from a place of relative safety. You can eliminate whole camps without them even knowing, maneuvering around the outskirts using poison traps and other elements. Other playstyles don't have this intrinsic connection with the land of Skyrim. I always find playing as a sneak archer, I take time to explore around a particular bandit camp to try to always find the best vantage spot. And this makes the sneak archer a lot more satisfying when so much of Skyrim is about exploration. But also, it puts the sneak archery 1-2 combination at a more accessible, and economical place than the other combinations of armor and block, or even sneak and one-handed, which are some of the other dual skill progression combinations. Getting into melee combat in Skyrim means two things. You're gonna chug more healing potions, and frankly, melee combat kinda sucks. In the former, consuming more healing potions means buying more healing potions every time you step into town or to a city, which means you're spending less gold on cool stuff. So the sneak archer in a way is reinforced through the game's economy. By avoiding melee combat, avoiding damage, we're able to spend our gold on cooler shit. Now imagine for a second if we had something like the Estus Flask from Dark Souls, a repeatable source of health. That makes the dangers of melee combat a lot less risky and have a less of an economic impact on your character. How might that change the economics of a sword and board build, and might we look at it a little more favorably compared to the safe and wealthy sneak archer? And then when it comes to why the melee combat isn't that great, I'm sure there's countless YouTube videos that talk about Skyrim's lackluster melee combat systems. Heck, the fact that there's so many mods that are trying to improve it is probably telling enough about why it's not that great. Whereas shooting bows in Skyrim is a heck of a lot more rewarding. So the sneak archer is incentivized by the level up design, by the 2-for-1, by being available right out of the gate. It's reinforced by the economic design of making you safe and having you spend fewer resources to do combat, and it's reinforced by just the combat design itself. That shooting a bow is a lot more satisfying than swinging a sword in Skyrim. And then it's reinforced through the questline of Helgen. Because you kind of might be wondering at this point, surely the mage playstyle can compete with this. And so this is where the quest and world design of Skyrim, again, like other elements, steers you back to the way of the bow and shadow. You get a bow in Helgen. You know what you don't get? Lots of spells for each of the spell schools. How do you get those? Honestly, you gotta go find them. You gotta go find them at later stages in the game. You gotta go buy them. You gotta stumble across them. You gotta go all the way up to Winterhold here and get them from some of the wizards there. So what are you gonna do in the meanwhile? Casting flames and praying to Talos? Or are you going to look for a form of play that is available and accessible to you and feels good right away? Or are you going to be sneak shooting your way through every bandit camp, lying to yourself that you're finally going to start casting spells on the next one? The sneak archer you can play right out of Helgen. You can even play it in Helgen. You can't play your elite conjurer until some later point in the game. And in the meanwhile, the level up screen is screaming at you to increase your skills. You want to constantly get cooler stuff. You want to have access to cooler perks. You want your health pool to get bigger. That's the whole point of this puzzle progression of an RPG. So across all of these systems, the design of Skyrim steers you to the sneak archer. From how you get experience to how you interact with the economy, the combat, the world. Heck, I haven't even mentioned how stealth is something you can use when exploring. You can use it all the time, whenever. Whereas a lot of other skills have very niche applications. Stealth in some ways is universal and ubiquitous. And so we joke that we accidentally always end up as sneak archers, but let me tell you, it's not your fault. Skyrim's design makes it the best and easiest choice for you. You have to actively go against the game to play a different way, or you have to mod it out to the 9 to make other playstyles seem more satisfying right away. So while working on this video, made me deeply curious if part of the reason for this is because Skyrim did away with class-based systems like in Oblivion and Morrowind. Or maybe it's something else. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And the next time you're playing through any RPG, I strongly encourage you to figure out how exactly you're being rewarded and leveling up in a particular way, and how does that maybe influence what kind of actions you take. And for your next boot up through your playthrough of Skyrim, and you see the option to loot the bow from a soldier in the sewers of Helgen, don't feel bad. It's not your fault. Just take it. The systems of Skyrim are made for the sneak archer. Or better yet, your desire to sneak shoot a bandit camp from the other side of the valley is tailor-made for the world and puzzle of Skyrim.